Bonjour tout le monde! When you think of Americans and the French, which group seems to be more relaxed overall? Is one nationality more strict or uptight about certain things, and is the other more chilled out and relaxed? I don't know, but for me, it's a toss-up, and it absolutely depends on what we're talking about specifically. Both the French and Americans can be more relaxed, depending on the context, but in this video, we're gonna get right into it with 7 things I find the French are more relaxed about than Americans. Okay, let's kick it off with number 1, eating dessert. And sometimes when I'm back in the USA, I feel like American culture makes, a huge deal out of having dessert and can almost make it seem like it's shameful, like it's a bad thing to have something sweet at the end of the meal. And yeah, it depends on your social group and the context, but I feel like most of the time, dessert is not even an option at US restaurants because we're so full by the time the dessert menu is presented to us, Just thinking about eating one more morsel at that point can really make you feel kind of queasy. So we're like, oh no dessert, I'm good, just the check please. But when Americans want dessert and still have room, I feel like women especially say things like, ooh, I'm gonna be bad and get the cheesecake, or, oh, I'm gonna get this, whatever it is, and I'm gonna share it with the table. Can you bring us 4 spoons? And there's so much guilt about eating dessert in the US that we can't be anything, but uptight about it, right? But let's look at France. What about the French? The French eat dessert all the time, and they seem to embrace this mentality that we only live once. And yeah, it applies to food. And I'm not saying French people are gorging themselves on pastries and cake and cookies and ice cream 24/7. That is not the case by any means. But, if the French go out to eat or, they host a special meal, dessert is always offered, and most of the time it's eaten and savored. And even when you eat at home, sometimes dessert, it could be as simple as a piece of fresh fruit or a yogurt. And yes, most meals in France end with some sort of dessert option. It's just as normal as having a beverage to drink or, a salad at your meal. Dessert is normal. Now, a few things to note. In France, dessert portions are small. A small triangle of fruit tart, not something the size of a brick like a 1,000-calorie bomb from the Cheesecake Factory or something like that. Normally, with French meals, you do still have room for dessert because these portions of dinner or lunch, they're not huge. So, you have room in your stomach for that dessert. And the French typically don't snack. So when it is time to eat a meal, they're hungry and they want to enjoy all parts of that meal, including dessert. And for those of you who might be interested, I've done an entire video on French mealtime habits and one that I really admire. So take a look at that. I'll link it here. And yeah, my understanding and in my experience, the French are definitely more relaxed about dessert. There's no shaming mentality of, ooh, I'm gonna be bad if I get dessert. No, food is to be enjoyed. In moderation, of course, with the dessert, but it's to be enjoyed. Okay, number 2, customer service in France. Customer service is not customer-centric here. And if you come from the land of the customer is always right, getting things resolved in France from this French perspective might be frustrating at first, especially if you expect things to be resolved easily. And you get used to it and you adapt, but it might surprise you. And one thing that catches me by surprise, still does a little bit, is that customer service numbers are often toll numbers, meaning yes, you pay to make the call. And yes, that acts as a deterrent for people because they don't want to pay, so they just don't call, right? In addition, return policies are not super lenient. Stores close early, sometimes at lunch. And while I can't say the French are okay with subpar service, they've seemingly come to accept it because that's how things are here. And I don't know if acceptance is the same as being relaxed, but it seems that people just shrug and they move on when stores don't go above and beyond, and they deal with it. But yeah, you deserve better, French people. There's a better way. Don't settle for bad customer service. Okay, next up, number 3, nudity and cursing on television. And, if you want to see nudity and hear the F-bomb on American TV, you're going to have to turn on Showtime or HBO, regular network TV. Even late night, can't show you breasts or swearing. That stuff's not really acceptable, and cable channels in the US, sure, they have racier content, but that wouldn't start till maybe 9 p.m. or after, and it's not as racy as French TV shows. If you hear the F word on TV, they're gonna beep it, you don't actually hear the word. And I find that even French TV commercials are more suggestive than what we see in the USA, a naked butt, ooh, at 5 p.m. or a putain isn't anything to bat an eye at or be shocked about. And And I don't know if Americans seem less relaxed about this because nudity is not what we're used to, but I know people aren't really offended by their bodies and swearing here in France, and they shouldn't be. But it's just normal in France to see the nudity and hear swearing on TV. Maybe it'll be normal in the US. Let me know what you think below about that. Next up, cutoff times for live award shows on TV. So if we stick with TV for a minute, I've noticed that on live television in France, they aren't so strict about adhering to a perfect schedule down to the second like they are in the US. And I just feel like American award shows like the Emmys or the VMAs, whatever, award winners come on stage, when the music starts, they go up the stairs, and they have 30 seconds max to speak and thank everyone. And sometimes if they're going on and on, the network will start to play that exit music, that's letting them know we're going to go to commercial. And they will literally turn the lights down and cut the clip, and just shut the mic off to shut the person up. In France, they seem to be less strict about that on live TV, and they let people talk even if they're going over the time limit. I find that it's a bit more relaxed in France. If something runs over, the next show will just start later. And why are they more relaxed? I think it has to do with money in the US. Or actually, I should start with France. In France, it's less dependent on advertisers' dollars, so there's fewer commercials on programs, and each second is less important to the network's bottom line. If a weekly show starts a little late because the live program went over by 20 minutes, it's no big deal. It'll just pick up at 9:20 instead of 9 o'clock. All right, also about time, being on time in general. I find in France, arrival times for a lot of contexts are just suggestions and they're not set in stone. If you have a dinner party starting at 8, show up at 8:30. Doctor's appointment at 2, show up a little late. And sure, American and French doctors are notorious for running late. It's not a French problem by any means, but how we react to it is where the difference is, I've found. So, Americans, I feel, expect a phone call from the office's secretary or a quick text if the doctor's running behind, like an hour behind, so that way you're not wasting your time sitting in the waiting room for an additional hour or two. And my dentist was really good about that, saying, we had an emergency, come later. But I've never gotten that call from a French practitioner. It seems that the French, on the other hand, expect that the doctor's running late, show up late, and tolerate it. And now, I bring a book with me to my appointment, so problem solved. And I just feel like in general, the pace in small town France runs a little slower. So, time's not a huge focus, but I was raised that being late is rude, whereas maybe in other cultures, being on time is impolite. I'm always early, that's how it is for me. But, cultural differences explain a lot, and we adapt, we get over it. Okay, next, interracial couples. And the US has no shortage of proud racists behaving badly, and the past year has made that abundantly clear. And in some areas of the country, people still believe that different ethnicities shouldn't mix in 2021, and that interracial couples are inherently bad. And you won't see interracial couples in some areas in the US, it's just not prevalent. And there was a poll from Gallup Minority Rights and Relations that claimed 13% of Americans do not approve of interracial marriage. And just to contrast that with 1995, that figure was 48% of Americans. So we're moving in the right direction, but still 13% doesn't believe that interracial couplehood is okay. While I don't have data in France, I feel like that number, that 13%, would be even lower in France. It's just my perception, but I feel it's pretty commonplace to see interracial couples all over France, in all areas, and everyone seems totally cool with that, at least publicly. Generally speaking, the French seem to be more accepting of those who look different overall. Again, that's not across the board, but I feel like the French are at least more publicly tolerant and less vocal about any issues with interracial couples. But you know what? We're all people. I think we should all be able to date and marry whoever we want. So I think we need to get with this century and get with the program. That number should be 0, in my opinion, of people who are against interracial couples. Okay, next up, taking time off from work and actually using your vacation time. And I find the French are super relaxed and chilled out about their time off from work because they have so much of it, and it's glorious. All French employees have 5 weeks of paid vacation per year, and that's the norm, and they're encouraged to use it. And some employees, like my husband Tom, who's a fonctionnaire, he has more time than that, more than the 5 weeks. So it's fantastic. You can take 2 or 3 weeks off in the summer, July or August. It's expected and it's welcomed. And yeah, telling your boss in the US that you want to take 2 or 3 weeks off in July or August, that's going to put you on a performance improvement plan for a lot of employers. And American employees in general, I feel like they stress when they have to take their vacation days because, the demands of their work are really high. It depends on the industry. But in France, vacation is a right. It's not a perk, and people make using that time off a priority. The work-life balance is prioritized here. And even today, when I've been here for years, Tom will say, I'm gonna take my Friday afternoon off to run those errands. And my natural response is, are you sure it's okay? Didn't you just take off your entire Friday 2 weeks before? I don't want you to get in trouble. He's like, no, it's fine. It's my time. I can manage it how I want. And I'm like, okay. So using vacation time here is not a problem, and I love that. Okay, something I want to mention is the US is a big country with a lot of people, and it's quite diverse, so of course not all Americans are any one way, just like all French people won't all be relaxed about the things I mention here. This is just my experience. I feel like I need to put this disclaimer, and generally speaking, these attitudes hold true. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and also I want to extend a huge merci to my subscribers who have supported my channel via my donation link below that I mentioned in my last video. I really appreciate that, so I'll put your names up here. Thank you. And lastly, let me know what other things you find the French are more relaxed about and maybe Americans are a little bit more stressed about, And if you enjoy this type of content, give it a thumbs up, share it with a France-loving friend, and I'll see you right here back on Oui In France soon. Salut!